What is up, peeps? I need to tell you something right now. I'm recording this video late at night, so that means that I cannot speak out loud too much because I live in a tiny apartment and my neighbors are going to be disturbed by it. And my throat is also like low-key killing me right now. So I'm gonna do something weird. I'm gonna use AI. I'm gonna use the AI model that I trained of my own voice to help me clean up my audio. And I already heard it, and it's kind of cursed. It also has some glitches here and there, so you're just gonna have to put up with that. Yeah, okay. See you later. Bye.
For those who don't know me, I'm a 3D artist. I've been making characters in Blender for some years. I think that those of us who work in 3D are more used to having interesting AI tools pop out promising to make our lives easier. Maybe that's the reason why I lack that knee-jerk reaction most 2D artists have when you combine the letters A and I together. Well, I like checking these modern tools out. It's part of keeping up to date. So while learning how Stable Diffusion works, I found out it's a lot of fun when you use it to remix some of your existing works. And that's what I want to share with you today. I have to define a couple things first for the beginners out there. Model checkpoint. It's a file containing a huge mass of pre-trained data used to start the generation process. I use the Photon model, one of the best Stable Diffusion 1.5 realistic models according to many. VAE. I'm not too sure exactly what it is, but I know it helps to give the right colors to the finalized image. I use one called FTMSE 840000. Yeah, it rolls out of the tongue. It's a popular one for realistic images. LoRa. Small file with additional pre-trained data used to assist the generation of specific content that is not possible with the checkpoint alone. I have trained my own Ada LoRa. This is something that you can do on your own, but it's a very big project in its own right. I won't teach you how to do that because I don't know how to do it very well. There are many videos explaining this you can find, but it's hard, believe me. Alternatively, you can also commission others to train one for you. ControlNet. It's a suite of additional complementary AI models that assist with many different specialized tasks. I'm using one ControlNet model called OpenPose. It helps the generated characters follow a specified pose. So what I'm doing here, I am preparing an image to feed into the Stable Diffusion and help me generate something on top of it. Or, in other words, help me transform it. Having very few complex details helps a lot, which is why I am using this simple outfit. I am making a very straightforward pose of Ada looking almost straight at the camera. Front views work very well, but 3/4 views are also good. Side views are much more difficult to get right. It is super important to get the fingers to be very visible and keep their pose simple and clean. Stable Diffusion does struggle a lot with hands and fingers, so don't make its job more difficult. Okay, so here I am creating the images that I will feed into Stable Diffusion. And as you saw there, the resolutions that Stable Diffusion uses are between like 512 and 768. So if it's a portrait image, it's 512 by 768. That's Stable Diffusion 1.5, which is what most people use. You can also go away with or get away with 768 by 768. So this is another format. Usually phi up works better, but I like to do my best to generate full body images. But phi up is way easier to get right. So yeah, I just have the character on a white background, and then I copy that whole image. So I flatten the image, select everything, and then just copy. The first thing is load the checkpoint model, and then to load the BAE. I also work starting from an image. So this is the image that I made before. Then this image fits into this node that encodes it to become a latent. It uses the BAE, and this latent is then fed into the sampler. This is the part that actually generates the image. So everything we do before this is just feeding it information. So I feed it the image that I want to transform, and then okay, so this is my LoRa for Ada, and I found that while using this model photon, a value of 0.4 works better. Then I have my conditioning, my positive conditioning and negative conditioning. That is also known as the prompts. Then positive prompt and negative prompt. This is what I want to generate, and this is what I don't want to generate. So this could even be also empty, since I am already feeding an image, but it helps a little, especially with this aura. This LoRa, I made it so that it requires the words twin tails and basically that, I think. Then this conditioning is fed into the sampler, but in the case of the positive conditioning, here's where something interesting happens. I complement this with a control net. So the image that I am loading also is being analyzed by this control net called OpenPose. It interprets this image and creates a graphic that this control net model uses. So this is the pose. This is like the rig of the character, the pose of the character. So this image is fed into this node. Then we also load that control net model, which is called OpenPose. We also feed it the positive conditioning, and then it transforms all of these into positive conditioning, but with the addition of somehow this information of the pose. Then the sampler uses all of that to generate an image such as this. And it doesn't look like great, especially the face. This is nowhere close what I want, but it's the first step. So after this is where the magic actually happens. I will grab this image and I will upscale it. This is a group of nodes that I created. I can just open it. So I am doing here a simple upscale using a model. I'm using a X2 model. X2 means that the upscaling will be by a factor of 2. If I go higher than that, then what I do afterwards is not gonna work great. So I just upscale that image and then encode it with the BAE that I loaded here. And this feeds another sampler. This sampler will use almost the same information as this one, the same data, I should say. But there's one difference, that I am loading a secondary LoRa here. The add detail LoRa, this one is pretty well known, pretty used, pretty popular. So I'm using this LoRa just for this second generation, not for the first one. And then I'm using the same data, so I'm using the same conditioning. I am also applying the control net, so that's this pose. Right, I'm applying that, and it goes to the sampler, to the second sampler. And this sampler has almost the same parameters as the other one, but this one I think has a slightly smaller denoise value that restricts its creativity a little bit, so to say. And then we generate on top of that upscaled image, and the result is much better than before. It's much more detailed, and it's more clean, except of course for the hands. That's just a problem that it's gonna be almost impossible to solve. And the last thing that I do, just because I can and because though I like doing this, is I remove the background using this node, and it gives me the same image but with a transparent background. So that's how I do it. If you use automatic 1111, which is a more simple UI or user interface for stable diffusion, then what I'm doing is almost like saying image to image. I'm generating an image starting from another image. Well, I think that's it. Okay, so here's something pretty cool that I wanted to show you. This is the character like originally, and then if we modify the strength of the LoRa, so going from very high, that's 1, to very low, that's 0. Okay, the character becomes more realistic because the LoRa was trained on my art, which is 3D cartoonish. If we remove that from the generation, then we are left with just a human.